All right, welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Pickled Onion Community Podcast. We missed last week. We're going to get into it. We're going to do a little State of the Union. A lot of things have been happening in personal life, but good things, and then also in the business. So we kind of want to give you a little bit of update. I've got Pat with me. So we're going to give you just a little bit of an update in this episode, talk about some things that have happened with the YouTube channel. I moved recently. This week, actually, so you can see this is kind of a new background behind me. And we're working on a website that hopefully will be launching by the end of the year. We want to kind of talk about what the vision is for that website in this episode. But first, Pat, tell me, have you been cooking anything interesting this week?
Yes, I guess I don't know if it's necessarily interesting, but I kind of do like re-highlighting that made fried rice for leftovers today, and I always am now pretty adamant of like making sure I make always extra rice, but even I made some like gochujang beef with snap peas the other day, and then I had leftovers and used the rice with the gochujang beef, but then I made sure I actually kept a little bit of extra rice from like the leftovers, if that makes sense. And then I used that to make some fried rice actually like an hour ago. And it always amazes me how much like you can make a decent lunch with like not that much fried rice, which is like throwing scraps in my, from my refrigerator. So
it's funny you bring that up because while we were moving, my parents were helping me, and we didn't have anything in the kitchen, or everything was in boxes. We actually ordered some Indian takeout, so I actually have some leftover rice from that in my fridge right now, and I'm not going to do a fried rice. I think I've got some like taco components, so I think I'm going to do ground beef, kind of season it with like cumin, paprika, stuff like that, mix it with rice. I've got some pepper jack cheese, and then I'm going to just throw on lettuce, tomato, and some pickled onions for lunch. But yeah, having the leftover fried rice, whether it's takeout or you've made it yourself and made extra, such a great way to just like instantly create, a meal, have a vessel for something that's like really filling too.
Yep, totally agree. So yeah, why don't you kick us off with a little bit of State of the Union. What's been going on in Ethan's world?
Yeah, so the big thing is that I moved. So it's been feels like weight lifted off my shoulders. I feel like, going through the house buying process, looking at places, just the whole thing. I didn't really realize how big of like a kind of not a mental block or just something on my mind constantly, like while we were, working on YouTube videos, website, business stuff too. So I'm just really glad to be in this space. I own it. I actually bought a house finally. So that's exciting too. Can actually, build this out. Like this wall behind right here is something we did yesterday. So it's actually fun to make projects like this, because normally I wouldn't be able to, or I just wouldn't bother, right? I've been renting the past, 8 years probably. So it's like I just wouldn't even bother. But now I can actually dream a little bit in this space because it's pretty wide open. So I'll definitely have to do a tour once we upgrade some other stuff on the YouTube channel. But that is one of the main reasons why we didn't do a podcast last week. Just moving stuff, figuring out all that, closing, whatnot. Just got busy. And because we were working on a very big YouTube video, which probably you all have seen, it's done very, very well, which was a garlic deep dive where we went into everything, how it's grown, the science behind the flavor, just everything. Ended up being like a 45-minute video, probably the most time, we've collectively spent on a video between, myself, Keith, Spencer editing, just like it all came together. But really, I think with these types of videos, this is where we want to take the direction of the channel, where we're doing less videos maybe overall per month, but the videos that you do get from us are going to be higher quality, more in depth, going to be very nuanced and have a lot of context and information that hopefully spans beyond, just like a simple cooking video. Because that garlic video, for example, really did start as a simple concept. I was like, oh, let's test like fresh versus jarred versus whatever. And then I just kept going down rabbit holes and asking myself more questions and trying to get to the fundamentals of garlic. So it feels like everyone kind of enjoyed that. And it was, for us, I think, really, really fun to make. And I think also has already created more and more ideas from everyone, from you, from Keith, and just like thinking about what other questions like can we ask ourselves to like bake into videos, whether it's, I think I saw in the Notion today, you'd mentioned something about like really old spices, testing them versus like fresh ones, and a couple of a variety of things. So I think that's really the direction we want to take the channel, is like do more of those deep dive, in-depth videos. And then another thing that happened last week for the YouTube channel was I filmed with Brian Lagerstrom, who's another creator on YouTube. He's actually a chef, unlike me. So develops like amazing recipe on his channel. And we actually filmed in person, and it almost turned into this kind of live cooking podcast where I think this podcast and that video might actually come out on the same day. But we set up 5 cameras around the kitchen, the last place before I moved, or 6 cameras actually. And we just mic'd each other up, and we were making, it's one of the faster than fast food videos, doing Taco Bell, but just was a really fun format. Like, it was more about the conversation rather than us just talking about what we're actually doing. And I think that's kind of the mix, is like, it's going to be kind of live cooking creators, like cooking podcast almost. I don't know. It's very interesting. I'll be very interested to hear what you guys think of that video. But those 2 verticals, I think, for the end of the year is kind of where we want to be focusing the channel, where it's like, it's either going to be deep dives, which take a lot more time and effort to like make sure they polish and make sense. And then the kind of live cooking podcast, if you will, which don't take much time at all, because it's really, hey, let's just get in the kitchen and cook. And then while we're cooking, that is the content. We don't need to have a ton of research. It's more just about the conversation. Like, we went into a bunch of random topics. So that's kind of fun, I think, just having some clarity on like what types of videos we want to make for the end of the year. So 2 questions for you guys listening to this podcast would be, what deep dives do you want us to do? And maybe we'll have to start a thread on the like a specific deep dive thread on the Circle page, just so we can kind of dump all of those in one area. And then outside of deep dives, what are the creators? Like, I think naturally I'd probably start with food creators, but I think if people like this format of the kind of the live cooking podcast, I think it could be really fun to get creators from other areas on YouTube, get them in the kitchen, maybe see them in a different space than they're used to, whether it's, fitness, lifestyle creators, other kind of education creators or whatever. So I think it's a really fun format that I hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah, definitely eager to hear some of the community's sort of ideas on different topics. I feel like one of the biggest things that you challenge yourself with these videos is sort of challenging your assumptions, which is something you didn't just do with the garlic video, but like every single food science or deep dive video that you do, that sort of, it feels like you go down a rabbit hole and then there's like all these other assumptions that you're like, wait, well, like, what about that assumption? And that's definitely one you tackle with garlic. The idea that I had recently the other day that I sort of tagged in Notion that maybe this is a deep dive we do in the future, or maybe not. There might be other ones that are more exciting. But the idea of expired spices, and like, it's something you've heard forever, right? Like, I think whole spices last longer, but maybe a couple more years. So maybe whole spices, it's like 4 years, whereas, pre-ground spices is like 2, or maybe it depends if it's a root or not versus a leaf. But like, how much does it actually matter? And like, something I think that you do that's great with these is you put it into applications. So it's not just like, I don't know, trying maybe garlic powder or like cumin seeds versus cumin powder that's maybe expired, right? You're not just like tasting that and like seeing how much the aroma is different. You're actually, using it how you might use it naturally, which is maybe in like a 5-blend spice that you rub onto a meat, right? And so by the time, if you were to use, expired, I guess, quote unquote, expired cumin powder, right, in like a rub, can you actually tell that it's like quote unquote expired versus not? So I think that as an audience member, I mean, for garlic, for me, I feel more as an audience member. I know like Keith does a ton of research. You're obviously you. So for me, I get to watch that video and actually watch it with my parents, and took away so many things. But yeah, I think these deep dive videos are I mean, I find them very exciting. I think the audience is responding really well on YouTube. So definitely kind of feels like it makes sense for us to double down on that. So definitely excited to hear what people, some of the ideas community has.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to like what we're working on. The big push behind the scenes is this new website. We don't want to say the name just yet. We do have a name. We're not going to say it just yet, though. We want to get a little further along. But if you noticed in the garlic video, there's a little Easter egg no one would know it's an Easter egg because we haven't shown yet. But in the garlic video, I kind of break down what are these 6 components of flavor. So it's taste, it's texture, it's aroma, it's sight, the human element, and physical. And those kind of pills that you see in that section, it's a couple minutes into the video. Those are actually elements that we are building into this website where we want to actually kind of create a mental model with how you can approach flavor, which is what I've been doing with all these videos, because I kind of realized through doing the deep dives, whether it's vanilla, garlic, Parmigiano Reggiano, tomatoes, it's like I'm kind of referencing the same concepts over and over and like asking myself, well, what is flavor in the first place? And it really is those 6 components, but rather than me trying to explain them in a video every single time, we end up doing these deep dives, they're actually going to exist as part of this new website on the fundamental side. Now, the idea behind this website is it's going to be recipes, yes, and then it's going to be the fundamentals, which is kind of the mental model, but they blend together where if you see like a sour tag on the fundamental side, that's going to be in the ingredients for something like a tomato or lime juice. Like it'll be tagged sour, and you can kind of hover over it just so like it'll give you a little note. But then we're on the other side, we're going to have a deep dive into like what sour is, how it works from kind of a food science perspective. So then if you want to go and do that deep dive, you can get there, or you can kind of just stay in the space. And as you use the recipes, you'll start developing and using these kind of mental frameworks to how to approach flavor without really even noticing you're doing it. And we've been putting like a ton of thought and a direction into this, which I think we're all really, really excited for. So, yeah, Pat, do you want to give us like a little update on, I guess, where we are from like, I guess where we started from like design and now kind of actually into some development on like a working website?
Yeah, sure. So we've been working with a design firm, first off, who's been awesome. I won't say the name, but they're just an incredible agency to work with. It's been really cool to be on like the receiving side of, where they kind of envision this platform going from a design and like a UX perspective. So us kind of sharing our thoughts and ideas on this challenge that we're trying to tackle, and then, letting them use their talents to kind of put that into like, they're doing both the marketing, the branding side of the platform, as well as the actual mock-ups and the design. So it's super cool to see them sort of bring that perspective as an outsider. But, just them using their craft, it's like so cool to watch a professional kind of do, work on their craft as relates to that. So we've been working with them, been kind of going back and forth on, I feel like we're very, well, at this point, we're very solid on what we think the brand is, very solid on like the initial MVP, I'll call it. At first, I would say we were potentially like dreaming maybe a little bit too big for what we're going to launch day one. And then we've kind of pulled it back to something that, that we think is, what we're able to launch with from like a content perspective, while, keeping it flexible so that if things don't work maybe early on, we can more easily pivot. And so that's where, when we start talking about like we have this recipe side and we have this fundamental side, that's sort of where we've landed for what we want to launch with MVP. So that's where we're at with that. But something we've kind of realized very early on is that with this new design, we're really, and you'll see it like once we launch, I think it's going to be this like aha moment for a lot of people that
it's going to change the game. Like, I'll just say it.
Yeah, like why,
it's going to change everything.
Haven't recipes been like this before, right? Like any recipe you search online, I mean, there are some exceptions. There's some websites that, it's a little bit cleaner, but 99% of the time when you search a recipe in Google, and I think that's how a lot of people search recipes, they end up on a blog. you get this life story about the dish or about the person who, like, honestly, you probably don't care about unless you follow that blogger. But I'm guessing most of the traffic doesn't care about the blogger. No offense. And then you get to the recipe, right? And like even the format of the recipe, a lot of times you're clicking jump to recipe, but then you get in that little that grid of what the recipe is, and it's just like not super easy to consume. And so we think the design of what we're doing, like, first off, if you were to take out the whole side of we're really trying to kind of blend this fundamentals, blend this like flavor profile into the recipe, even if you were to strip that out, the experience of like looking at a recipe on our platform compared to what you see in these blogs is like tenfold better. So like that is already going to be really awesome to see. But then I think this whole like aroma profile, food science, fundamentals, technique blend that, I mean, you're kind of, I don't want to say you're like pioneering that, but like this is like sort of your concept, kind of, bringing that like idea to the recipe space, like that, I think can also really change the game. I think we'll probably end up like pivoting on a lot of that stuff potentially early on. We'll see. But that side of it is certainly really, really exciting to see. And then, if I zoom out even further, like that whole side of this platform, really, I think we've continued to kind of put this into two categories. That's all sort of under content, right? We would say. Yep. And then there's this whole like application side of the website that we're not attacking right now, but we're sort of setting the foundation to eventually pivot in that direction. So what I really mean by that is, the content side, sort of what we're going to launch with MVP is recipes and like fundamentals of cooking and things like that. Everything that you would sort of see on like, I put it in the category of content. It's like we have to produce the recipes. We have to produce like the educational content on the fundamental side. There's a whole other sort of side of the application that I think we're probably equally as excited about. We know we're not going to attack that day one, but we're definitely excited to address. And that's, I'm calling it the application side, because it's really, when you think about it more, it's like going to a website and logging in and being able to like bookmark recipes and potentially meal plan and create grocery lists and all things that you'd probably put in more of like a category of this is an application, right, that folks are using. That whole side, not attacking day one, but I know I certainly am super excited to sort of evaluate all of the problems that folks have in, I don't want to just say like cooking, because we're definitely going even further back from that. It's like we want to look at lifestyle, and so when you think about cooking, it's not just the time in the kitchen, it's grocery shopping and like meal planning. We think there's all sorts of problems folks have just related to that, related to like eating, that we want to sort of do a deep dive on and sort of figure out what are the biggest problems folks have, and then what do we want to try and tackle with this new platform.
Yeah, and I think like this is where it's almost where, because this is not branded, like this is not going to be ethanjabowski.com. It's like we have a name, I don't want to say it just yet. It's going to be its own brand, and then additionally we're building it, as Pat mentioned, as a platform. So yes, it'll start with my recipes, but long term we're already thinking like, if we have this like foundation and kind of curriculum, like I want to get other creators who maybe don't have websites or they don't want to run a website, and kind of bring multiple creators from like different cuisines, different backgrounds to this kind of platform, just because I can only make so many recipes myself, whereas like if we have this whole kind of ecosystem of creators, but it's all in this kind of mental model of how we write recipes and how we do deep dives and these things, like I think it'll be really, really big. And that's really just the content side. So it's just, free to use website. Like, there will be some minimal ads on it. Like we have to, run some ads on it, but like it's going to be recipes. It's going to be food education content. And it's just like, we just want you guys to use it basically. And then, like Pat mentioned, kind of the second level is where we're thinking, how do we create like logins, and like someone could create a profile with this website where they can log pantry items, where they could potentially log macros, or they could have a calendar and drag and drop meals from the website that they've tried, or maybe they leave custom notes like, oh, I used 4 times the amount of serrano pepper because I like it really spicy, and like that saves in there. Or basically just asking ourselves, what problems do you guys have that we can solve through this? And I think you guys in this community are going to be really really stoked to see it, but we're also going to probably lean on you for feedback. So before we actually launch the content website to the general public, we're going to send links to you guys to start looking with, maybe make a recipe from the website. Tell us what you think, what works, maybe what doesn't, or what needs maybe clarification with even how we're writing things, copywriting, all that stuff. So hopefully in the next 1 to 2 months, we can start sharing that with you guys, like some specific pages and stuff that you can at least check out before we roll it out to the general public. So, it's hopefully it's just a really, really good experience for everyone. And then kind of the last piece of that puzzle is we have been thinking at some point, this is not, again, so phase 1 is kind of content website. That's the goal is to get it up by the end of the year, at the start of the year. Phase 2 is kind of this, web application. And then another big piece we want to figure out is doing some products. But when it comes to products, really only going after maybe high quality or limited runs of things. So rather than having, a full lineup of pants, I like made in stuff, but I don't feel like we need to do a whole, run of we don't need to have our own stainless steel that's branded to this website. I'm not worried about any of that stuff, but just really focusing on products we think are great. Maybe it's a singular thick cutting board, or maybe it's one knife instead of having 10 knives. It's we just do one that we sell on this website and just kind of focus on the basic fundamental products that you may need. But that's a whole nother thing way down the line. But we can already see kind of this big ecosystem that we're really excited for. I think you guys are going to love it. This has kind of been the secret project going on behind the scenes. And I think everyone involved, whether it's, Pat, Keith, myself, the design firm that we worked on, and then we're also, Pat's developing it, but we're also we're doing a hybrid approach, with Pat developing and a web development company. They kind of see the vision too. So everyone we've talked to about it and have started to, show some of the things on how it's going to interact with you guys. I think it's kind of clicked for everybody, and it's really, really exciting. I think we're kind of moving away. What I kind of realize is I'm kind of moving away from maybe, social media, influencer, creator, whatever you want to call me. We're almost really acting more like just a startup in a way where, this, website that we're building I was only really able to have the idea for it because of the past videos I, made over the past 5 or so years. It wouldn't have been possible without that journey I took. And now it feels very clear and it makes a lot of sense. And the goal is if this business grows with the website and everything, what I want to do is right now there's all the pressure on the videos to make all the money, to be able to pay designers, to pay, monthly, salaries and all that stuff. So now there's all the pressure on the videos. But what I want to do with this business is really flip it, where it's okay, once we get the website up, hopefully it goes really well. We can actually grow that business and then funnel that back into the videos and go even deeper on the videos. Go do travel series for a month, or spend 2 or 3 months doing a series of 6 videos that all feel really cohesive, which is just not really possible with kind of the pressure of coming out with weekly content on YouTube. It kind of forces you to be well, you can dream big, but you can't dream too big because we still need the content to come out every week or maybe every 2 weeks. So that's one of the big reasons. In addition, just we just want to get it in people's hands. It's going to be way more useful than me just talking about it in videos, but actually spread much beyond kind of Ethan Chabowski is our goal for it. But yeah, so that's kind of the, I guess, state of company and how things have been going. But yeah, I think for us, it's kind of an exciting time. A lot of stuff going on the scenes. It'll be more exciting once we can actually share stuff. And I know we probably talked a little bit abstract in this video, but hopefully it all make a lot more sense in the next couple of months. Any closing thoughts, questions, Pat?
No, I think I'm excited to continue to work on this and to launch it. I think it's it's like both exciting from the business perspective when you talk about how well we think that this platform can do, which then like turn around and can potentially make the production quality of the current videos way better. Like that's super exciting. And then like flat out just, where you spend your daily time or your weekly time or monthly time, like working on this platform has already been super, super exciting. And it's not even out there in the world for us to like get feedback from people and see how people are responding to it. So I'm definitely excited for those days. And the current days ahead of us, the current weeks ahead of us. Cause I just think it's super fun to work on. So I think people are going to take to it really well. If they don't, we'll pivot and, we'll continue marching on.
Yeah, you guys are going to love it. Like if you guys are fans of the type of content, that I've, done on the channel, and kind of where we've taken it, like I just can't wait. Can't wait for you guys to see it. I know that's probably frustrating for you, but, more information soon. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for the time. I know kind of a little bit of a quick update. Like I said, stuff's been going on behind the scenes, but we'll get back to our normal cadence here in September. But yeah, hope you guys are having a great day. Catch you all in the next one. Peace.